Last time I worked on this project, I was on the snoot and I just finished rounds 8 and 9, repeating round 3 2 times so that we're right at this part where we start making the snoot smaller. So we're going to be tapering and only adding 5 beads, but first thing I want to kind of make sure I go around and double check that I don't have any gaps, that I have a line of Nymo between all of the herringbones. And when you got to this point, you probably noticed that your snout is no longer a splayed open Demogorgon from Stranger Things. It's now actually a little tubular space. Almost finished. I've already gone around and made sure that I have spaces between all of my herringbone so that I could show you what it will look like. And the easiest way to do that is probably put my needle behind in the background and hope that you can see all the threads in between each piece of herringbone. So that being done, we're going to taper down and we're going to only pick up 1 bead at a time instead of 2. And go down through the piece of herringbone, 1 bead, and back up again. So you're doing the same thing as your last rounds, going through each piece, but instead of adding 2 beads that settle into 1 row, you're adding 1 bead to create these pointed tips on the end of each herringbone piece. And if I could say herringbone one more time, I will have hit some form of record, I'm sure. Gotta put 1 more here as 5. And then go back to where I started through the bead from the last round and the bead just added in this round. Here we go. 5 points at the end of the herringbone, 5 pieces. With the felt that's been included, and I do know that for the test kits there was not enough added, so there will be a longer piece of felt for the actual kits when they go out. But you want a piece that's about 1.5 inches. It's about there. And then the rest is going to be used for the tail of the S-Dragon. And you're going to squish the felt into the snoot. Do, do, do. Into the snoot. If your felt sticks out through the end, you could just use a pointy object and kind of twist it a little bit and squeeze it in more. Mine is cut just right to fit in there, but I'll probably have to stuff it back in 1 more time before I'm done this. Now we're switching from herringbone to peyote, and it's kind of a modified peyote because we're going to go between each of the points on the herringbone now. You got a bead, C bead on your needle, and you're going to go through just the tip of the herringbone all the way around. That's 2. Trying to stay in focus and not throw my beads around. 3, 4, 5, and also the one added at the beginning of round 11. With that done, we want to pull them close. So we're going to go through just the 5 beads you've added without adding any new beads for round 12. So you're skipping a bead, going through a bead, skipping a bead, going through a bead, and not adding any new beads. You'll have this little circle of 5 beads when you're done. Little circle of 5 beads. You notice I'm kind of rolling the dragon snoot so I can draw the thread even tighter around. And we got that space to fill. The closure is a single sea bead, and I'm going to cross over, go through 2 beads, and kind of hourglass back again. I want this sea bead to be centered in the middle of the snoot, and I want the sides to be drawn together even more. You're going to have to kind of use your best judgment on how that's going to look for your individual dragon, but I'm going through 2 beads on one side, back through the sea bead, and 2 beads on the side I started again. And then gauging, how centered is that bead? Do I need to attach it to another one in the circle? Looks like I do, because I have the space between the sea bead and this side of the wall. So I'm going to go through that sea bead again, and through the one bead that it's the furthest away from, here, to kind of draw it back into a closer close. And I'm happy with that. That looks like it's going to do the job and get this snoot all closed up neatly. Closed up, no openings. Yep, looks good all the way around. I'm happy with that. And that's the snoot closure. We have horns next, but first, boop the snoot. You must boop snoot. It is required as part of the tutorial. So I'm going to take care of the touch-ups now and close off any spaces in the S-Dragon's face, and then we will get the thread where it needs to be to start the horns. I do see a couple of spaces at the neck join, so I'm just gonna get my needle over there. As long as the thread's not shown through, it doesn't matter how you get to where you need to close things off. And a lot of it is just your best judgment, weaving in and out of the sea beads, or when you're at the neck itself, the B and A beads, until you are happy with how it looks when it's done. Without getting tangled up around your dragon spikes. So touch-ups are now finished and getting the needle in position for the horns. So I want to be 2 beads away from the snout, 8 beads away from the spine, and in the row above the eye and pupil. And that is about right there for this dragon. And we're going to be working with B beads. That is the treasure beads in the kit. We're going to attach them onto the outside of the dragon head. Using kind of a peyote, you're going to pick up a bead And you're going to go underneath the thread that goes between the herringbone pieces. You want to be careful because you don't want to break the thread. Sometimes if you push down with your thumb, the thread and needle will pop up on the outside and you can just weave through. And it's a little tough to see, but that delica is now attached to the outside of the head. We're going to do that 2 more times. And you want to leave a space in between that first, treasure bead, not delica, and second. So go under the thread and make sure there's a space, because we're going to peyote back and there's going to be bee beads put in that space. We're going to do third treasure bead in here, skip a thread and go through a thread so that there's a space. And that is row 1, the base of the horn on the first side of the head. Row 2 is a peyote back again with the bee beads. You're going to pick up 1, 2, and 3. You should be pretty familiar with peyote after working on the main body. But instead of doubling back again like we did in the main body at this point, we're actually going to cause a bit of a taper down. So your needle's going to go underneath that first bead. Camera can't really get close enough to show you, but underneath that first bead. Not undoing your work, by the way. Underneath, beside, first bead, last bead. Basically, you're hooking on that thread that's holding the first bead down, and you're going back through the first bead in row 1 and the last bead in row 2. Then you're going to add only 2 beads for row 3. So pick up 1, go through the second in row 2, and pick up the next one, go through that one in row 2, and that's row 3 with a tapering edge. See the angle that's happening there now? It keeps your horns from being just a block sitting on top of your S-Dragon. It gives it a much sleeker, elegant look. Peyote back again for row 4 with only 2 beads, and this time you're going to go through these 3 all the way to the base. You're going to go around that thread again that's pinning the first bead to the dragon snoot, and then back up all 4 of the beads so that row 3 and 4 are tapered. It's kind of up to you how tight you want to have your horns be. The more taut you hold your thread as you build them, the more likely they are to stay up on the forehead. But there's also a risk that they'll fold over and turn more into an eyebrow than a head horn. So that's, again, preference as you're working. Take a look at them. Make sure you're making your dragon look the way you want it to look as you're following the instructions. Row 5 has only 1 bead, and row 6 has only 1 bead. And we're going all the way back through the 5. And in case you were wondering, yes, we're going to wrap around that first string again and go all the way back through those 6 beads to be in position to create the tips of the horns with a fringe technique. I just need to make sure my needle is cooperating. So through all 6, oops, sorry, hit the camera. Off the nail, and horn base for the first horn is complete. We are at the horn tips now of the S-Dragon, so I'm going to need a couple of different beads for this part. I know I will need the B beads, but I will also need some C's, got a bunch already out, the A's, and also the H's. The first time using the H beads in this project. And I've got medium aqua for this azure dragon. So with the tassel technique, you're going to string half of the beads. I need 3 B beads. Look at the instructions, make sure I'm right. 3 B beads, 1 C bead, an H, and then the A. And we're going to double back, but we're going to skip the last bead. Skip the A, go through the H and C. And then pick up 3 of the B beads to do the other half of the tassel, or in this case, the horn. And go through that focus trouble again in order to secure it to the base. We're going to go through that B bead there at the end of row, what row is that? Row 4, I believe? 4? Sure, sounds good. And that is 1 horn tip done. And we're going to go back out again through the last bead in row 2 here. And we're just going to make a single tassel this time with how many B beads? 2 or 3? Da, 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 da. 2 B beads, an H and an A. Okay. And we're going to skip that A bead again, and this time go through all the others on the string and through that base bead. Actually, yeah, I do like that. And that's the second horn tip finished. On there, done. And it's got to mirror it on the other side. How you get to the other side of the dragon head is up to you, but I like to go through the head without catching the horn tips. And just go up into this position that mirrors the other side. We need to be above the eye and 2 rows from the snoot and 8 rows from the back. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 puts me right there for the second horn. Second horn with the B beads. We're going to pick up a B bead and find a thread to hook under. You might need, like I said, to depress the beads a little bit to make that thread pop out so you can scoot under it. Not all threads are cooperative. Just don't fight with it too much and break it. That would be bad. Do not break your thread. There you go. First bead in there. I'm going to skip a little bit. 1 thread's worth. Go through the second. Leave a gap again like we did the first time. And then add a third one. Again, skipping a thread. Still want it to match with the other side. I feel bad because I'm holding this guy by the eyeballs, but I gotta hold it somewhere. All right, all 3 of the second horn are secured, each one with a space in between them so that the next row of peyote will fit in there. So we're going to peyote back to the front with 3 B beads. 1. draw it as tight as you feel comfortable, but don't yank on it because you don't want to break it. And then for the second horn, we go through that B bead at the end of row 2, pick up 2 delicas, an H and an A, so both the horns are mirrored. Get over there. Skip the A bead and go through all of the ones on your string, because it is a single strand tassel, as well as the last bead of row 2 again. And that's it, the horns. Horns are done. S-Dragon has horns. Woo! And they match. Well, now they match on both sides of the head. Secured to the top of the S-Dragon. We gotta fill in the spine next. The starting position for the spine fill-ins is after the C bead on the spines. I'm going to try and wind my way there. And I have enough thread to finish the spine and start the tail, so I'm not going to splice one in. But if you find that your thread is short, make sure you splice in a new one before you start the spine, because you go from spine into tail back in one motion, if possible. In one motion, in one thread if possible. Wow, words are hard. Okay, got through that. We're going to go through this D bead and then through the C bead, and I will be in the starting spot to fill in the spine. That there, to this here. And back up again because I went too far through the megtoma. Here we go. So this is where your spine fill-ins start. You'll notice that's the last C bead of the main body, the one that's between the 2 rows of D size 8 beads, and we start filling in right there with H beads. For filling in the spine of the S-Dragon, we are going to use the H beads, and we're going to pick up 2 at a time and fit them between all the spikes of the S-Dragon. So that's row 8 of the main body, if you're keeping track. 2 beads through a spike, 2 beads through a spike, and you're going to do that all the way to the base where the tail is going to be built. This helps to fill in the spine a little bit more, but also if your megatamas are a little bit off center or trying to twist a little bit on you, this helps really draw them into the middle and stay upright. It's also a really convenient way to get from the head of the dragon to the tail of the dragon for part 3. Last spine, and then through the seed bead at the end. Oop. Make sure you're going above your thread when you're going through the bead so that the thread stays in the dragon. And that is the spine all filled in now. All of my spikes are standing straight up, and that spine that was a little bit loose and wobbly back and forth here, it is feeling much better.